How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and today we are finally getting back to Final Fantasy VII. Oh yes, I'm done with 16 for now. The videos aren't doing well, so balls to it. Instead, we're going to go back to Final Fantasy VII, and we're going to talk about one of the big questions, which is, still, is it one timeline or two? And I'm going to be honest, I was always predominantly in the two timeline camp. The trailer that dropped the other month, which was amazing, we all loved it, it was great, but that trailer has kind of pulled me back a little bit towards not being sure whether it's one or two. I was reasonably convinced it was two, but there's a few things that are in that trailer and that tie into previous events so far in the remake project that suggest it might actually be one. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go over these things, I'm going to go over my thoughts on it. I've not really done the timeline talk since the trailer dropped, and everyone immediately decided that, oh my god, it's one timeline. And it could be. It's looking very likely that it could be, but still, I'm not quite at the point of ruling two timelines out entirely. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get on with it. So don't forget, drop a like on the video, subscribe for future content, but this is my thoughts on the one timeline possibility. So the first thing that really stands out to me in the Rebirth trailer happens in the first few seconds. It's obviously the fact that we see what is supposedly the party dead, minus Cloud. And this is probably the first thing that set the alarm bells ringing for me about how it could support one timeline more than two timelines. So think back to the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake intermission. Think back, after the cutscenes, we get that one final little teeny tiny cutscene, which is Zack walking into the church, sees loads of people all kind of messed up and in some kind of disarray, and it cuts. And initially a lot of people were kind of reaching for what could have happened to put the people in the church in this situation. Could it have been Platefall? That was kind of the assumption that a lot of us made. I was kind of leaning towards Platefall in the absence of any other explanation. Well, the trailer just gave us the explanation, because we clearly hear in the trailer talk of a tornado that ripped through sectors 0, 1 and 2. They stayed away from sector 6, you know what's good for them, but this tornado will have displaced a lot of people, and those people will have obviously gone to the other sectors to get shelter, and one of those places that they would probably end up is the church. Now what that does is, that brings Zack right up to the present day. Without Cloud, weirdly, because we don't see him in that cutscene, but that brings Zack pretty much right up to the present day. And if Zack's brought up to the present day, and the events that we see in Midgard do happen in the same timeline of existence that the party are currently existing in, so when we see the party leaving through what I believe is the tunnel out of Calm, like a secret sneaky exit out of Calm, if those two are existing in the same timeline, that means Zack's in the same timeline. And what this does is, it leaves a big shadow of doubt hanging over whether or not we've got two timelines running alongside each other, or a multiverse of timelines or anything like that. It definitely suggests that these events could be happening in the one timeline. And if that's the case, it has many more knock-on impacts to the way that we should potentially be looking at the story. Now, like I say, the only real explanation for two timelines there, I mean, I suppose there's two. Like, you could say that Zack is in the past and that is Platefall, like the original assumption, but I don't think it is. I genuinely do not think it is. If you think about it, we see it just after we see the party walking towards Calm, and yeah, cutscenes can exist in whatever order chronologically that they want to, but the suggestion is that around the same time that that's going on, Zack is at the church, and if Zack is at the church at around the same time that's going on, it's just after the tornado, therefore all the people make sense. So yeah, it does kind of ruin that one a little bit. The only other possibility is that there's been some sort of timeline break and we do still see two timelines, except in one of them, the party itself is dead and Zack is probably on his own with Cloud. That sounds like a pretty bleak timeline if that's the one that, you know, if that's what's left. Especially now that we've seen all of the party dead. Because if that is, you know, if we are dealing with multiple timelines, that won't have happened in the main timeline. That would have happened in a branch. So yeah, it kind of makes things a little bit convoluted. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, the whole thing's a little bit convoluted with the timelines, because even the single timeline theory is technically a multiple timeline theory. Like, Remake's timeline was heavily influenced by the previously existing timeline of the OG, and it seems like the OG has been entirely erased if it's one timeline. And it would also mean that potentially most of the actions that we took in Remake have been erased. Zack will have been coming through time behind us. The only other option for that is that Zack doesn't re-enter Midgar in his present timeline. Something drags him forwards to now immediately. But then it would have been night when Zack was looking at Midgar. So yeah, do you see what I mean? There's still little bits of confusion here and there. Maybe that's just my brain. You know, try and clear these bits of confusion up for me in the comments below. But yeah, I'm not ready to ditch two timelines just yet. But I will fully concede that one timeline just stepped up its game massively. Like, one timeline's making moves. Now, another thing that we see in the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer that potentially leans into the one timeline theory would be what we see with Cloud. Now, you kind of have to stack these things on top of each other, and if you take one of the pieces out, the whole thing falls down a little bit. So, let's propose that Zack is in the present day, in Midgard, you know, doing his thing. He's in the church at the same time as the party are walking towards Calm. The aftermath of the tornado is going on, and it's all one timeline. Let's just suppose that. Let's just put that out there. If that's the case, Zack is probably going to hook up with the party at some point. And that leaves you with a bit of a weird dilemma then, because Cloud's brain, if it hasn't already broken by that point, would probably just shatter. Like, his psyche would just crumble to dust. And Sephiroth would just be able to do whatever he wants with Cloud. And I've got many thoughts on that as well. That'll be coming in a future video. But it would leave Cloud just torn asunder, basically. His identity would crumble entirely. He would immediately, I believe, just crumble to dust and become essentially another one of the Sephiroth clones, you know, like one of the Black Cloaks. And what do we see? We see a flash of Cloud in a black cloak walking through the whirlwind maze. So, and that could just be a vision that Sephiroth pushes on Cloud, you know, to try and mess with him a little bit. But it could also be a vision of a future that is now going to happen. And we'll circle back around to that in a minute as well. But if this does turn out to be a realistic possibility and Cloud does end up getting broken and corrupted and ends up even temporarily being taken over by Sephiroth, or at least acting in the manner that one of the reunion clones would act, that would then leave us in a position where Zack would probably take over the role of lead character, and will probably end up in charge of Zack for a bit. Like that'd be a guess if we do lose Cloud. Now, this has been something that's been a bit of a theory for a while. Baby Seal suggested ages ago about Evil Cloud, and I kind of loved it and hated it at the same time, because I wouldn't want to be in control of the party fighting against Cloud. I'd want to be Cloud, unable to stop himself from attacking the party. That's where I'd want my perspective to be in this situation. But I'm going a little bit too deep. There are separate videos coming, one regarding Zack, one regarding Cloud, kind of exploring what I think their role could be depending on specific circumstances. Obviously we need another trailer so that we can get more information on this. But there is just one more thing. And that comes from the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, we are fighting the Whisper Harbingers. But actually, no, rewind a little bit. Before that, when we just stood on the highway, before we're going into the portal and we're talking to Sephiroth, we get the first one of a few little memory dings. And I'll call them memory dings because all of them after the first one are memories. Future memories, but memories nonetheless. The first one, however, is in the past. And the first one is Zack. And it's definitely something I'll explore more in depth in a future video, but it seems like the planet knows that it's about to lose, and therefore it sets a plan in motion. It's been watching us change memories and the future and fate and destiny all the way through the game. It's been watching Sephiroth change fate and change destiny all the way through the game. And in this moment, the Whispers decide, right, we're going to change destiny, we're going to change fate. And they make sure that Zack survives. If that's the case, it's almost as though the Whispers have changed fate and not us. Like, they've stopped us from changing fate in a specific way. They've supported us, maybe, in our mission to change fate. But at the very least, they've taken control of the situation in the only way that they know how to. And that is to go back to a point before any of this and bring someone in who can maybe rectify the situation and who can bring balance back and at least lead to a positive future and a positive destiny and fate for everybody, rather than what they could assume is a negative one. And that could be what the little flash of cloud is. That could be the negative future that could happen because of what the party have done. But Zack is there in order to stop that from happening. It could even be that the planet doesn't trust Cloud and Aerith and the others anymore because of what they've done at the end of Remake. I've said this in past videos about 2 years ago, that the planet just does not trust them anymore, probably, and therefore it's brought Zack back. And then after that, we see memory after memory, future memory of course, pop into everybody's mind, and then as the memory ends, we see the little mote of light come out of the back of everybody's head, as if it's gone. And I think that is what's happening in that moment. As we are fighting the Whisper Harbinger, and as Zack is surviving, that future that we know, the OG, is being erased. So, the scene at the end where we see Red 13 running with his kids and up to the top of the mountain and then looking over Midgar, gone. The fight between Cloud and Sephiroth, that's something that happened, that's gone. And then finally, the scene of Cloud and Aerith, where Aerith gets taken out by Sephiroth and Cloud puts her to rest in the lake, and that's gone. So everything that's meant to happen is gone now. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because if Zack is alive and Zack is in the present day and Cloud is easily more corruptible and more broken than he ever was at this point in the original game, I think we could see some wild switcheroo kind of thing going on where we end up taking control of Zack and we lose Cloud to Sephiroth. And it takes me back, all the way back to that first preview trailer of Rebirth that we got. One where we see Sephiroth and Cloud walking towards Mount Nebel. And a load of us speculated that's not the flashback. And Nomura, I believe it was Nomura, quickly went, ha ha ha, of course it's the flashback, what are you talking about? I don't think it's the flashback. I do not think that's the flashback. I think that happens. I think we will walk with Sephiroth to that mountain. I could be wrong, but that's the vibe I'm getting right now. And we've always said, the final thing I'm going to say in this video, we have always said that Nibelheim feels like a good place for big things to happen in Rebirth. You know, the game is going to start in Nibelheim. It's going to start in Calm, technically, but it's going to start with the flashback. And then when we get round to Nibelheim, you're going to have Sephiroth there, you're going to have Cloud there, you're going to have Vincent there, of course. Well, I assume we are. But will Zack make it there as well? And if he does, what will the ramifications of that be? It may not even be that Zack triggers it. It may be that Cloud's just broken anyway and Zack just wanders in after Sephiroth scooped Cloud up. So Sephiroth comes in, scoops Cloud up, disappears into the distance, and then Zack turns up like, hey, what's going on? What? You know, just confused. I don't know. I've rambled enough. The next video is going to be much more planned than this, but I just needed to get this out here. We need to start the Rebirth train rolling, because, yeah, we've not got long. We've not got long. Let me know what you think anyway in the comments below. Are you a 1 timeline person? Are you a 2 timeline person? Are you a 37 timeline person? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Do you think we're going to see Zack take over from Cloud? Do you think we're going to see Sephiroth taking over Cloud or turning Cloud to his whims? I have theories on that as well. We'll be getting to them. Let me know what you think in the comments below though. And while you're at it, hit the like button, subscribe for future content, but more importantly than anything, have a great day.